He saved an alien child. That act changed everything. Now the word alien appears in every whisper. And the questions begin. Who pays the price when one life is saved and a whole species thinks they own the dead? Ava stood on the ridge and watched the valley light up with the slow fire of dawn. Her long silver hair caught the early sun and looked almost like glass. Beside her, Ember and Onyx shifted on their haunches. The two dragons were quiet, folded like living shadows against the sky. They were her companions, her family, and they listened with the patience of creatures older than most nations. Ava was an elf of the eastern wilds, a ranger who had learned to read the wind and the shape of danger. She had walked between worlds more than once, and she knew the shape of grief when it arrived on soft feet. The valley below held a wreck, a black shell of metal half buried in ash. People came to wrecks and left with stories. But this wreck had a story that would not stay quiet. Not long ago, a human named Ethan had found a dying thing inside that wreck. The thing looked like a child, but it was not human. It had pale, translucent skin and eyes deep as sleeping moons. It was an orphan of a world that had no mercy left. Ethan had pulled his sleeve across the creature's fragile chest and let his blood fall into its mouth when there was nothing else to give. He had done the small, brutal math of survival and made himself the answer. The child lived. The child, named Mira by those who sheltered her, pulled breath after breath and learned the taste of warmth and safety. The settlement called it a miracle. The local universities called it an opportunity. The alien's mother, who'd survived on a separate fragment of wreckage and had watched with hollow eyes, came when she could. She held her child and saw life returned. In her culture, life returned by blood is debt, and debt must be balanced. Ava had been there when the first visitors came to the wreck. The smell of burnt metal and the thin cry of the rescued alien had cut through the morning like a blade. Ava had stood at the edge of the crowd, dragons low and watchful. She did not touch the child, but she watched Ethan, his hand stained, his face small with the kind of exhaustion that comes after you cross something you never meant to cross, and felt the world tilt. The question arrived like a thief. The alien mother did not understand human law or human words. She spoke in gestures and old songs, and she used men from her tribe as translators. The message was made plain. The child had been saved by the human blood. The mother requested that the debt be repaid in the only way her people knew how. She wanted the human who had given life to become the seed for the next generation. The crowd around the wreck split like ripples. Some people called the demand an ancient right, a cultural truth that deserved respect. Others said it was monstrous and could not be allowed. The government sent peacekeepers and diplomats. The scientists sent notebooks and scanned the child for data. And in the shadows, a new kind of rumor grew, that the alien culture could force compliance, that the debt was a law written in bone. Ava felt every word as if it were a sting. She thought of Mira's small hand that had curled around Ethan's finger. She thought of Ember lifting his head as if he could smell the truth of the world. She thought of Onyx's slow, patient eyes. She knew the value of life. She also knew the weight of choices made in the dark. Ethan did not ask to be a hero. He was a miner by trade, someone who took the long route to help his mother survive. He had given blood because, in a small, human way, he could not bear to watch a small life end. When the mother's demand reached him, he recoiled. He had never been asked to carry a culture's future. He had not wanted a child of himself and an alien. The thought lodged into his chest and would not leave. Ava moved closer to the wreck the day the alien mother and the translators came to speak. The meeting was tense, held beneath a tarp that shook like a flag in wind. Translators with calm faces interpreted, but the alien's eyes remained fierce and quiet. The mother sang a soft, low melody, and Ava felt the words move like light under skin. The message moved beyond translation. It carried weight. The translators spoke of rituals and bonds. The alien mother spoke of the survival of a small, scattered species. Her people had been broken by storms and hunger and the burning of their world. The child was the last of one line on that ship. In their law, a life saved by another's blood created a right to the future. The mother asked Ethan to join them, to travel to their enclave, to mate and share his genes so that the line might continue. Ethan's hands shook. He said he could not. He had responsibilities. He did not understand their ways. He said he had given the life he could. That was enough. Voices shouted. Some demanded justice for the alien mother. Others demanded protection for Ethan. The dispute was not only legal. It was intimate, sharp, and human. Ava watched him. For a long time, she said nothing. Her dragons curled closer like two dark questions waiting for an answer. Ava's life had been about choices made in wild places. She had seen love in forms that frightened others. She had seen sacrifice become survival. She understood the alien mother's pain, even if she did not agree with the demand. Is there any law? Ethan asked. His voice was thin with fear. Can they force me to do this? The translator shook his head. Not our law, but their custom. They say it is binding. The words were small, but the feeling in them was large. Ava stepped forward then. She did not speak for the crowd. She spoke to the alien mother and to the human who had bled for the child. She told them both a simple fact. Debt could be repaid in ways other than what one's culture demanded. There were other futures. She offered help. Some in the crowd laughed. The idea of an elf intervening in human and alien matters was odd to them. But Ava was not odd to the dragons or to herself. She had 2 dragons and a small band of allies who would follow her on dangerous paths. She offered sanctuary, a place where the child could be safe and where Ethan could choose his own future. She offered to help the alien mother understand that not all debts had to be paid by blood. The mother watched Ava with a slow, unfathomable calm. She touched Mira's hair and looked at Ethan and then at Ava. For the first time, the alien made a sound that human ears could take as sorrow. It was not a refusal. It was not an acceptance. It was the long pause before a decision. The valley that night held firelight and argument. People clustered in groups and shifted like tides. Some said Ava was naive. Some said she was brave. But when the alien mother walked away, carrying her child, the settlement felt smaller, like a room where a storm had passed but left a glass of water trembling. Ava did not sleep. She rode Ember across the low clouds and listened to Onyx's slow rumble. The dragons smelled like smoke and old rain. Ava thought of rights and obligations, of the way saving a life can bind people across species, and of how cultures can meet and misstep. She knew that the mother's demand would not vanish. The alien people were not a single voice. Some would press the claim. Others might find new meaning in compassion. But for now, the cloud of expectation hung over Ethan's head like a shadow. Ava decided then to act. She could not promise to change a culture. She could not guarantee safety against every hurt. But she could offer a way for voices to be heard, for choices to be respected, and for a child to grow without being a bargaining chip. She went to Ethan in the morning, when he stood at the edge of the settlement and stared at the wreck like a man watching his life rearrange itself. Ember lowered his head and nuzzled Ethan, and the miner startled before giving a small, grateful laugh. I do not know if I am brave, Ava told him, but I know how to make a path harder to force. I can ask questions. I can speak to their elders. I can make a place where Mira can learn your ways and theirs. Ethan looked at her as if he were learning the shape of an unfamiliar star. Why help me? He asked softly. Because I do not like people being pushed by fear, she said. Because your life did not belong to them when you opened your hand. It belonged to you. Because Mira is alive and deserves more than to carry a debt. And because the world is changing, and there is no use letting fear write the rules. Ethan breathed out and let a long, slow weight leave his shoulders. He still did not know what the future held. He still feared that the alien mother's demand would return like a tide. But he also felt the first warm thing since the night he had given blood a small, bright thread that might grow into something like hope. Ava's dragons lifted, wings like folded maps, and she rode back to the ridge. The valley held its secrets and its quiet arguments. The alien mother watched from a distance, her child asleep on a woven mat. For Ava, the night was a promise to keep watching, to use her cleverness and her dragon strength to protect choice and life. This was only the first turn of a wheel that would not stop. The demand had been spoken, and with it a chain of answers would form. Some would be ugly. Some would reveal the best that humans and aliens could be together. Ava understood one true thing. Saving a life had opened a door, and she would either let it slam or stand in it and hold it open. She chose to hold it open. Ava thought saving the alien child would bring peace. She was wrong. Whispers now rise like smoke across the camps. Some call Ethan a hero. Others call him a debtor to an alien cause. And in the deep woods, the alien mother gathers her people to press their claim. The demand has not been forgotten. Ava woke before sunrise. She had not really slept. Her dragons, Ember and Onyx, rested with wings tucked close, their breath rising in soft, steady plumes. The air smelled of dew and old smoke from the campfires. Down in the valley, the settlement stirred slowly awake, unaware that the day would bring another shift in the strange story that had bound them all together. She stood at the edge of a ridge and looked at the wreck that had started it all. The metal husk had grown quiet now. The rescue teams had already gathered what they could, but the shape of the wreck still loomed like a half-buried memory. Somewhere inside it, she thought, there were still echoes of the voices that had been lost. Ethan came up the slope, his boots leaving dark prints in the damp earth. He looked older than he had 2 weeks ago, not by years, but by weight carried in his shoulders. The news from the alien camp had reached him at dawn. A delegation would arrive by mid-morning. They would ask again for what the mother had demanded. Ethan stopped beside Ava and tried to find words. "I thought it was over," he said quietly. Ava glanced at him, then back at the wreck. "Some things do not end when you save a life," she said. "They begin." He rubbed a hand over his face and exhaled. "I didn't do it to owe anyone anything. I did it because there was no other way." Ava nodded. "I know, and that is what makes their demand feel so heavy. But remember this, you gave your blood freely. A gift is not a chain." Below them, in the settlement, the alien delegation arrived. They came on foot, carrying no weapons, but their presence was like a shadow against the morning light. At the front walked the alien mother, her dark eyes calm and unblinking, Mira cradled in her arms. Behind her came 2 elders of her people and a translator from the nearby port town. The camp gathered in uneasy silence. Some were curious, others angry. A few watched with sympathy. The tension was a living thing that moved between them like a restless breeze. The translator spoke first, his voice low but carrying. "The mother of the child comes with respect. She asks again that the man who gave his blood join with her people, so that the child who lives because of him will not be the last of her line." Ethan shifted his stance but said nothing. His hands were tight fists at his sides. Ava stepped forward. Her dragons shifted, their golden eyes following her but staying still. She bowed her head slightly to the alien mother, then raised her voice so all could hear. "I honor the life of the child," Ava said, "and I honor the courage of her mother. But a gift of life should not be answered with the loss of another's freedom. Ethan is not a resource to be claimed. He is a person who chose to save your child. That choice should be respected." The alien mother's dark eyes fixed on Ava. She sang a few notes, low and resonant. The translator hesitated, as if struggling to shape the meaning into words. "She says," the translator began slowly, "that where she comes from, a life given binds 2 families. To refuse the bond is to cast away the life that was given. She asks if the human believes the child is unworthy of being joined to his bloodline." A ripple went through the crowd. Ethan's face hardened. "That's not what I believe," he said, his voice steady though his heart raced. "I saved her because I couldn't let her die. That's all. I never wanted to bind anyone to me. I never wanted to be forced into a future I didn't choose." The alien mother listened, head tilted slightly. She replied with another line of song, and the translator nodded grimly. "She says choice is a human word. In her people's law, survival is not a choice. It is duty." Ava felt the ground shift beneath the discussion. She stepped closer, her dragon's tails brushing the earth like quiet thunder. "You and your people have suffered much," Ava said gently to the alien mother. "But you came to our world. You came to a place where we have our own ways, just as you have yours. Ethan's blood saved your child. His willingness saved her. Forcing him now would not honor the life you both value. It would dishonor it." The alien elders whispered among themselves. The mother kept her gaze on Ethan, then on Mira, who stirred in her arms and clung to her sleeve. The settlement leader, a man named Harris, stepped forward then. His tone was firm. "This is not a decision to be made in a single meeting. We will talk with the council. We will find a path that keeps peace. But no one will be forced. Not here." The alien mother inclined her head slightly. She did not argue, but her silence was not surrender. She turned and left the circle with her child and the elders. The delegation walked back toward the woods, leaving behind a camp filled with whispers. When they were gone, Ethan turned to Ava. "This isn't going to end, is it?" "Not soon," she said. "But endings come from choices made with patience." He looked down at his hands. "I didn't mean to become the center of all this." Ava smiled faintly. "No one ever does. Heroes aren't born ready. They're just people standing in the wrong place at the right time." That night, Ava climbed to the ridge again. Ember and Onyx flanked her, their scales glinting faintly under the moonlight. Below, the settlement's fires burned like small stars. Beyond the trees, she could see faint glimmers, the alien camp's fires. A sound of wings stirred the air. Ember's head lifted, ears pricking. Ava's keen ears caught it too. Something was moving in the dark, not one of her dragons. She reached for the hilt of her blade, scanning the skies. Out of the low clouds came a slender figure riding a winged beast smaller than her dragons, but faster. It circled once above the ridge, then descended, landing on the far side of the slope. Ava stepped forward as the rider dismounted. It was one of the alien elders, the younger of the two who had stood by the mother. He held up his empty hands to show peace. "I come alone," he said in halting human speech. "I come to talk." Ava's eyes narrowed. Ember rumbled a low warning, but she raised a hand to quiet the dragon. "Talk," she said. The elder drew a breath. "Our mother cannot see beyond the old law. She cannot see that forcing the man will destroy the bridge we hope to build. There are some of us who think as you do, that the bond must be given, not taken. We wish for the child to grow among both peoples, but the old songs have deep roots. We fear what she may do if hope is denied." Ava studied him in the pale moonlight. The weight of his words was real, carrying the sense of a culture at war with its own traditions. "You risk much by coming here," she said. He lowered his gaze. "I risk because the child matters. Her life should be a beginning, not the cause of another loss." Ava nodded slowly. "Then we may yet find a path together. But you know that your mother will not stop asking." He nodded once, grimly. "I know." When the elder departed into the night, Ava remained on the ridge for a long while, her dragons quiet beside her. She could feel the threads of the future weaving, human and alien, kindness and demand, choice and duty. Somewhere at the heart of it was the child, Mira, who had asked nothing and yet bore all the weight. Ava whispered into the night, more to herself than to anyone else. "We will not let them break you, little one." Ember huffed softly, and Onyx flicked his tail. The stars wheeled silently overhead, as if listening. The night in the alien camp was restless. Fires burned low, but whispers traveled far. Ava believed she had gained an ally among the alien elders. Yet as dawn neared, a secret council gathered in the shadows. They were ready to force their claim, even if it meant tearing apart the fragile peace between human and alien. The morning came wrapped in a heavy mist that clung to the valley like a slow breath. Ava awoke to the soft rasp of Ember's scales against rock as the dragon stretched. Onyx crouched by the ridge, golden eyes fixed on the distant tree line where the alien camp's fires still smoldered. Something in the air felt unsettled, as if the earth itself knew that the day would bring new conflict. Ava had spent most of the night thinking about the alien elder who had come to her in secret. His words still lingered in her mind. There were those among his people who wanted peace, who wanted the child Mira to be more than a token of survival. But there were also others, bound by the old songs and the old laws, who saw the human's blood as a debt that must be claimed. She saddled her dragon Ember as the mist lifted and glided down to the settlement where Ethan waited. He stood by the well, pale and tense. His eyes carried the weight of sleepless nights. "They will come again, won't they?" he asked as soon as Ava approached. Yes, Ava said quietly. But we may have a friend among them now. One of the elders came to me in the night. He does not want the old law to break what little peace we have. Ethan gave a small, hollow laugh. A friend is good. But the mother won't stop. I see it in her eyes. She looks at me as if I've already been chosen for something I never asked for. Ava placed a hand on his arm. We will stand with you. You gave what you could that night, your blood, to save a child. That was a gift. No one has the right to take more. Ethan nodded, though the fear in his eyes did not leave. Before Ava could say more, a horn's deep call rolled across the valley. It was a sound not made by humans. Ember raised his head sharply, and Onyx let out a soft, warning rumble. Both dragons shifted as if ready to take flight. They are coming, Ava said, scanning the tree line. Out of the morning haze came a procession of alien warriors. They carried no bright banners, but wore dark bands across their arms, a sign of mourning and of resolve. At the center walked the alien mother, her face stern, and her child Mira bundled in a pale wrap at her chest. Beside her were 3 elders, not just the 2 who had come before. The new arrival was taller, his bearing colder. The settlement's people gathered, murmuring with unease. Harris, the settlement leader, stepped forward to meet them, with Ava and Ethan by his side. The dragons stayed near Ava, their presence a silent shield. The alien mother stopped a few paces away. She lowered her head in a gesture that might have been respect, then began to sing. The melody rose and fell like the wind through hollow stone. Even without words, the song carried sorrow and a sharp edge of demand. The translator stepped forward, his voice steady but softer than before. She says the time for waiting has passed. Her people have suffered the loss of their home, their kin. The child who lives is their last hope. She asks again that the man who saved her life be bound to her people so that her daughter may not stand alone. Ethan shifted his weight. He opened his mouth but closed it again, fighting to find words. Ava saw the tremor in his hands and stepped slightly in front of him. No one will be forced, Ava said firmly. You have asked. He has refused. That is his right. The 3rd elder, the tall one with the cold gaze, stepped forward now. His voice was low but carried far. In our law, he said through the translator, a refusal is a breaking of the bond. It is an insult to the life given. We do not forgive insults lightly. The crowd stiffened at his tone. Some of the settlers muttered angrily. A few stepped closer to Ethan, as if to shield him. Harris raised his hand for calm. We respect your traditions, he said, but we will not permit anyone to be forced into something against his will. We seek peace, not war. The elder's dark eyes glinted. Peace, he said, does not come from denial. At that, Ember's tail lashed once across the earth, and Onyx's low growl rolled like distant thunder. The alien warriors tensed but did not draw weapons. The mother sang a few soft notes, as if to calm her own people, and spoke briefly to the translator. She says, the translator relayed, that she does not wish for bloodshed. She asks for time. But she also warns that her people's patience will end. With that, the delegation turned and walked back toward the woods, leaving the settlement once again divided and uneasy. As the crowd dispersed, Ethan turned to Ava. How long before they stop asking and start taking? Ava looked toward the distant tree line. That is the question we must prepare to answer. Later that day, Ava visited the alien camp alone. Ember and Onyx waited in the shadow of a ridge, hidden but close enough to respond if needed. The alien elder who had visited her at night greeted her at the edge of the camp. His eyes were heavy with worry. You came, he said quietly. I needed to understand, Ava replied. If your people try to take Ethan by force, there will be no peace left to save. The elder nodded. I know. I warned the council, but the old songs have roots deeper than reason. The mother grieves the loss of her people. She clings to what she knows. But the new elder, he wants more than survival. He wants power. He thinks forcing the bond will prove his strength. Ava's jaw tightened. And Mira? The elder's expression softened. She's only a child. She does not know she carries the weight of 2 worlds. She clings to her mother and watches the stars. Ava's heart ached at that image. We need to protect her. And we need to protect Ethan. I will not let either of them be used as tools for another's ambition." The elder hesitated, then stepped closer. "There's something you should know. The council plans to call a gathering under the red moon. It is a time of decision in our tradition. If the mother and the new elder demand the bond before the council of clans, it will be harder to refuse." Ava's mind worked quickly. "When is the red moon?" "In 3 nights, the elder said. "You must be ready." Ava thanked him and returned to the ridge where her dragons waited. She gazed up at the pale afternoon sky, already imagining the shadowed moon that would soon turn red. The future was rushing toward them, and with it a choice that could ignite conflict. Back at the settlement, she found Ethan mending a tool, his movements slow and distracted. She told him what she had learned. His face went pale. "They're going to try to make it law," he said. "What am I supposed to do?" "Stand your ground," Ava said, "and trust that you are not alone." That night, as the first edge of the red moon crept over the horizon, Ava sat by a small fire with Ember and Onyx close beside her. The dragon's warmth pressed against her shoulders, a reminder that even in a world torn by old customs and new fears, there was still loyalty and courage. She whispered into the darkness, as if speaking to the sleeping child far away in the alien camp. "We will find a way, Mira. You will not be a weapon in this struggle, and neither will the man who saved you." Above, the stars watched in silence, and the red moon climbed slowly higher, as if heralding the storm yet to come. The red moon rose like a warning flame over the valley. In the alien camp, drums began to beat, slow and heavy, like the pulse of an old, unbroken law. Ava knew that the next meeting would not be a simple discussion. It would be a trial. Ethan would face a choice no human should ever be forced to make, and the child who had once been saved by his blood would stand at the center of it all. The night air was sharp and cold as the red moon reached its full glow. It bathed the valley in a strange copper light that made the trees look like silent watchers and the distant wreck gleam as if it still burned. Ava stood at the ridge, one hand resting on Ember's neck. Onyx crouched low beside them, tail curling with restless energy. The dragon sensed what she felt, a shift in the air, a gathering of will and conflict. Below, the settlement's people gathered in uneasy clusters. They spoke in low voices, some fearful, others angry. Farther beyond the river, where the alien camp lay hidden among dark pines, the rhythmic sound of drums rolled across the valley. The red moon's night had begun. Ethan sat on a low stone near the fire, elbows resting on his knees, eyes fixed on the ground. He looked up only when Ava approached. His face was pale, but his voice was steady. "They're calling for me, aren't they?" Ava crouched in front of him so their eyes met. "Not just for you. They're calling for a decision. But remember, you saved a life. You never promised them more. That truth matters, even if they won't admit it." Ethan gave a small, grim smile. "Truth doesn't always stop people who think they're right." Ava nodded. She knew he was right. She had seen too many battles where reason failed against old fears and traditions. At dawn, a messenger came from the alien camp. It was the younger elder who had met Ava in secret nights before. He bowed his head to her and spoke in a low voice. "The council gathers tonight under the red moon," he said. "They have asked for the human to come. If he does not, the new elder may call it dishonor and provoke his warriors." Ethan's jaw clenched, but he stood. "If I don't go, they'll use it as an excuse. If I do go, they'll try to use me anyway." "You won't go alone," Ava said. "We'll go with you. And we won't let them turn you into a prisoner." That evening, Ava, Ethan, and Harris, the settlement's leader, rode toward the alien camp. Ember and Onyx followed in the shadows of the trees, their huge forms moving quietly despite their size. The red moon hung low over the horizon, as if watching them. The alien camp was alive with firelight and the sound of drums and chants. Hundreds of eyes, human-like, but with a pale, inner glow, turned toward the visitors. The alien mother stood near the council circle, Mira sleeping in her arms. Her gaze fixed on Ethan as soon as he appeared, unreadable yet intense. The council sat on a half-ring of carved stones. The 3 elders waited there, with the tall, cold-eyed elder in the center. His presence dominated the circle like the shadow of an old tree. The translator from the port town stepped forward and raised his hands for silence. His voice carried across the open clearing. "We gathered tonight," he said, "to decide the bond of life and the debt of blood. The one who gave life stands before those who ask a return." The tall elder rose and spoke in his own tongue, his voice deep and resonant. The translator translated for all to hear. "He says a bond formed when the man gave his blood. That bond cannot be denied without shame. He calls upon the man to honor the bond and join his blood to their child's line." A murmur swept through the alien crowd. The mother did not speak yet. Her eyes remained fixed on Ethan, calm but unyielding. Harris stepped forward, his voice firm. "Ethan acted to save a dying child. That was an act of compassion, not a promise. In our world, saving a life is not a contract for the future. We respect your traditions, but we will not let them strip a man of his right to choose his own path." The tall elder's expression hardened. He turned toward the mother, as if urging her to speak. Slowly, she shifted Mira in her arms and stepped forward. When she spoke, her voice was soft, almost like the start of a lullaby. The translator's words came slowly, almost reluctant. "She says her people's survival depends on the joining of their blood with his. She says she asks not as a conqueror, but as a mother who has lost too many children. She asks if the man who saved her daughter's life will now save her people's future." Ethan swallowed hard and took a step forward. His voice was quiet but clear. "I'm not your enemy," he said. "I didn't save Mira to insult you. I did it because I couldn't let her die. But what you ask isn't saving a life. It's asking me to give up my own life, my own choice. That's not a debt. That's a chain. I can't give you that." The tall elder's eyes glinted with anger, but before he could speak, Ava stepped forward. Her dragon shifted behind her, their eyes glowing faintly in the red moonlight. "Your traditions have kept your people alive through hardship," she said. "But if you force this man, you will not save your people. You will lose what little trust you've begun to build with ours. You ask for life, but you would destroy it if you take away freedom." The alien crowd stirred, voices rising in divided tones. Some in support of the elder, some uncertain. The young elder who had warned Ava raised his voice. "Our future cannot be built on chains," he said in his own tongue. "If we demand the bond by force, we will bring only hatred and war. The child must grow in peace, not in a house of debt." The tall elder turned on him with fury. "You would betray our ways? I would keep our people alive," the young elder replied, standing firm. A hush fell over the gathering as the mother stepped forward again. She looked at Ethan for a long moment, then down at Mira, who stirred and opened her pale, moonlit eyes. The child reached out a small hand toward Ethan. A sound like a sigh passed through the crowd. The mother's voice came again, softer than before. "She says she cannot give up hope," the translator said, "but she will not let hope become a weapon. She asks for more time." The tall elder's expression darkened, but he did not speak further. The council dispersed slowly, the crowd breaking into murmuring groups. The red moon hung above them like an unblinking eye. Ethan let out a long, shaky breath. Ava stood beside him, her hand resting on Ember's scaled shoulder. "It's not over," Ethan said quietly. "No," Ava replied. "But tonight you are not alone. And that may be the beginning of something better." As they rode back toward the settlement beneath the fading red moon, Ava glanced back once more. The alien mother stood alone at the edge of the circle, Mira asleep against her shoulder, her gaze following them with an expression that was no longer anger but something closer to sorrow. Ava whispered into the cool night air, more to herself than anyone else. "We still have to find the bridge that keeps us all alive." Above them, the stars seemed to listen, cold and distant yet constant. The stars burned cold above the valley as the last embers of the red moon faded. In the silence before dawn, a shadow moved beyond the alien camp, silent, deliberate, and unseen by the watchers. Neither Ava, nor Ethan, nor the alien mother knew that the true danger to them all was not the council's old laws, but something far more ruthless and far less patient. The new day rose gray and cold. Mist hung low over the river, and the broken ship's hull gleamed faintly in the light, like a scar that would never fully heal. The settlement stirred awake slowly, people moving with quiet purpose. The night's tense council had left a heaviness that no one could yet shake. Ethan stood near the river, his reflection shifting in the slow current. He felt as though the water knew more than he did. It had seen all the fights and still flowed on. Ava approached quietly, Ember's warm breath clouding in the morning air beside her. "You didn't sleep," she said. Ethan shook his head. "I keep thinking about what she said. I saved Mira because I couldn't let her die. But now I keep wondering if I did enough. Or if I made things worse." Ava's voice was steady. "Saving a life is never the wrong choice. The world makes the rest complicated. But you didn't start this." Their struggle was already there. Before Ethan could answer, Harris came from the settlement's gate, his expression grim. "We've got trouble," he said. "Our scouts found tracks on the northern ridge. Not alien. Not ours either. Whoever they are, they're moving toward both camps." Ava's hand went to the hilt of her short blade. "Raiders?" "Worse," Harris said. "The kind that follow the wrecks. They smell weakness and come for what they can take." Ethan looked toward the alien camp across the river. "If they attack, they won't care who they hit first. Human or alien, they'll burn it all the same." By noon, scouts brought more reports, armed strangers moving in small bands, testing the edges of the valley. It was clear they were not here for peace. That evening, Ava, Harris, and Ethan rode to the alien camp once more. This time, there were no drums, only a tense, expectant silence. The alien mother waited by the council circle, Mira standing close to her side, her small hand clutching her mother's sleeve. The tall elder's face was harder than ever, as if he had expected this turn. "You bring news of enemies," he said through the translator. "We bring warning," Harris replied. "If they strike, they'll strike us all. We have to stand together, or we'll fall one by one." The tall elder folded his arms. "Your people bring the raiders. Our people suffer the cost. Why should we trust you now?" Ava stepped forward. "This is not about trust. It's about survival. The raiders will not ask who gave blood and who did not. They will burn the valley and kill your children, as they would ours. We can face them together or die apart." The young elder from the council nodded. "Our hunters have seen the signs as well. We can fight, but we are few. Together, we may stand a chance." The tall elder's expression remained unreadable, but he finally gave a single nod. "We will fight beside you. But when the raiders are gone, the debt between us will still remain." The alien mother looked at Ethan then, her gaze softer than it had been under the red moon. She said nothing, but the look in her eyes seemed to hold both gratitude and something like worry. That night, Ava and Ethan sat by a small fire near the river. Ember and Onyx rested nearby, their eyes reflecting the starlight. Mira wandered a few steps away from her mother, kneeling by the riverbank to wash the water. Ethan's voice was low. "I don't know if we can win this fight, but I know we have to try." Ava stared into the fire. "We will. But we have to remember what comes after. If we survive, we'll have to rebuild trust, not just walls." Before dawn, the attack came. The raiders slipped into the valley like a dark tide, swift and brutal. Fires broke out along the settlement's edge. Alarm horns sounded from the alien camp. Ava mounted Ember in one fluid motion as Onyx leapt into the air, his wings beating like distant thunder. The dragons swept down on the raiders' front lines, scattering them with bursts of flame and the roar of their wings. Ethan fought on the ground alongside alien hunters, their spears and his rifle striking together against the invaders. Harris led the settlement's defenders with grim resolve. In the chaos, Mira became separated from her mother. The child stumbled toward the riverbank, her small voice lost in the shouts and clash of battle. Ava saw her just as a raider broke through the alien line, blade raised. Without hesitation, Ember dove, claws striking the raider down. Ava slid from the saddle and lifted Mira into her arms, shielding her as another wave of attackers surged forward. Ethan appeared beside her, covering them with his rifle. "Go! Get her back to the line." Ava carried Mira to the alien mother, who knelt and pulled her daughter close, her eyes wide with fear but unbroken. The battle raged until the first light of dawn. When the raiders finally broke and fled, the valley lay scarred and silent. Fires smoldered in the grass. Both humans and aliens had fallen, but they had not been driven out. Ethan sat down heavily near the river, his hands stained with soot and blood. Ava stood beside him, watching as the alien mother crossed the burned field to them, Mira clinging to her side. She spoke softly to Ethan, the translator relaying her words. "She says the debt between you is no longer a chain," the translator said. "She says the life you saved has now saved others." Ethan looked at Mira, then at her mother. His voice was hoarse. "Maybe we're finally starting to understand each other." The alien mother nodded once, her expression solemn but no longer distant. As the sun rose over the valley, its light revealed a battlefield, but also something more. Two peoples who had fought side by side for the first time. Ava looked to the horizon where the raiders had fled. "This was not the end," she murmured. "But it may be the beginning of something we've never had before." The dragons lifted their heads to the rising sun, their eyes bright, as if they too sensed the turning of the tide. The valley still smelled of ash and iron from the battle with the raiders. Yet as the smoke cleared, Ava sensed that the true storm had only just begun. Far beyond the ridge, the dark horizon shimmered with strange lights, a sign that something ancient and far more dangerous than raiders had awakened. The fragile peace between humans and aliens was about to be tested in a way neither side had ever faced. The morning after the battle was quiet in a way that felt unnatural. The sky was a pale silver, and the river reflected it like a strip of cold glass. The valley bore fresh scars, burnt grass, torn earth, makeshift graves marked with simple stones. Both humans and aliens had buried their dead side by side. Ava walked through the field with Ember at her side. The dragon moved silently, lowering his head as if in respect for the fallen. Onyx kept a slow watch from a nearby hill, his sharp eyes scanning the horizon. Near the river, Ethan knelt to wash the blood from his hands. The water ran red for a moment before clearing again. He looked tired but steady, as if the long night had burned away some of the weight that had haunted him. The alien mother approached with Mira at her side. Mira still clutched the small wooden charm Harris had carved for her as a token of friendship. She gave a shy smile when she saw Ava, but her mother's expression was distant and troubled. "She has not slept," the translator said softly. "She says the night before the raiders came, she dreamed of lights in the northern sky and heard voices calling. She believes something greater than the raiders has awakened." Ethan rose slowly. "If she's right, we need to know what it is. We can't fight what we don't understand." Harris joined them then, carrying a rough map drawn on a piece of salvaged hull metal. He pointed to a mark on the northern ridge. "Our scouts saw the same lights. Strange machines, half buried, glowing as if they'd just woken up. Could be the raiders stirred them. Could be worse." Ava looked toward the distant ridge. "If those machines are part of the old war that broke this world, we can't leave them unchecked. We need to go see for ourselves." By evening, a small group set out, Ava riding Ember, Ethan carrying his rifle, Harris walking with a steady stride, and the young alien elder leading the way with two of his hunters. Onyx followed above them, gliding low and silent beneath the clouds. The journey was long and tense. They passed old wrecks overgrown with alien vines, their twisted metal still bearing the scorch marks of battles fought decades ago. The air grew colder as they neared the ridge, and the strange lights pulsed faintly in the distance like a heartbeat beneath the earth. When they finally reached the site, the group stopped in silence. Before them stood a massive structure, half buried in the hillside, a tower of black alloy veined with lines of pale blue light. The ground around it was cracked and scorched as if it had been struck by something from the sky. Ava slid down from Ember's back, her boots sinking slightly into the soft ash. "This isn't a raider camp," she said quietly. "This is older. Much older." Ethan stepped forward, running a hand over one of the glowing lines. "Feels like it's waking up, like it knows we're here." Suddenly, the ground beneath them trembled. The blue veins in the tower flared to life, and a low, resonant hum filled the air. The alien hunters raised their spears. Ember and Onyx spread their wings in warning, a rumble deep in their throats. A beam of pale light shot skyward from the tower, piercing the clouds. A voice, not human, not alien, echoed in the air, distant and metallic. Speaking in a language no one understood, the young alien elder turned to Ava. "We should leave. Whatever this is, it is not meant for us." Before they could retreat, a surge of energy rippled from the tower, knocking several of them to their knees. Ava grabbed Ethan's arm and pulled him back. Ember roared, flames bursting harmlessly against the unseen barrier that now surrounded the tower. As suddenly as it had begun, the humming stopped. The light dimmed, leaving the valley eerily quiet once more. Harris exhaled slowly. That wasn't a weapon. That was a signal. Ava's expression tightened. A signal to who? Back in the settlement, the alien mother stood on the riverbank with Mira. She looked up at the distant northern sky where the pale light had faded, her eyes shadowed by something like recognition and dread. That night, as the group returned, they gathered around a fire in silence. Ethan finally spoke. "I thought the hardest part would be fighting raiders or facing old traditions, but this feels bigger. Like the world itself is telling us we've got more to face." Ava nodded slowly. "We've crossed one bridge between our people, but there's another waiting, and it leads somewhere none of us have seen before," Harris added. "If that signal calls what I think it does, we'll have more enemies soon. The kind neither humans nor aliens can face alone." The alien elder looked toward the stars. "Then we must stand together again, or we will all be swept away." In the quiet that followed, Ember shifted closer to Ava, his golden eyes reflecting the flames. Onyx settled on a nearby hill, his shadow stretching long and dark in the moonlight. The alien mother arrived then, Mira sleeping in her arms. She stepped close to the fire, her voice low but steady. "She says," the translator murmured, "that the bond we once argued over has already saved us. She says it may be the only thing strong enough to save us again." Ethan looked at her and then at the sleeping child. For the first time, he didn't feel the weight of the demand. Only the truth in her words, that their lives were now tied by choice and by fate. Ava's gaze shifted to the distant ridge where the tower slept again, waiting. She felt a chill run down her spine. "This isn't the end," she whispered. "This is the beginning of the real fight." Above them, the night sky stretched wide and silent, as if listening. Somewhere beyond the stars, something had heard the signal.